Happy Monday, everybody. It's Monday, and so it must be time for another webinar. A webinar related to navigation and trip planning. So today, I hope you all brought your Garmins, and Barbara will tell you all about what they can do. But first, I want to thank Maddie Miller and Robbie Monsma, who helped me organize those webinars. And I want to let you know that next week we're going to do something different. We're going to actually look at paper maps, believe it or not. No application, no electronic device. We're going to talk about paper maps, why they're useful, how you get them, why you should have them in your backpack. And the speaker next week will be me. So tune in for that one. And then we'll have a couple more that are in the works, so stay tuned. They're not ready yet, so they're not on the schedule, but the one for next week, which is mainly focused on USGS topography maps, but also other paper maps, is online right now, so you can sign up for it if you'd like. With that, I want to say, first of all, hello to Barbara Auden, who's the speaker today. And she has put together a stellar presentation with lots of screen captures and lots of good information for anybody who has a Garmin device. So this one will be sort of hands-on, so as much as we can do that on a webinar. So she's gonna make sure that you can follow along and click on the menus if you'd like of your Garmin device if you have it handy. And she will tell you all the stuff that the Garmin can do. And there will be a follow-up in a few weeks, and that one will deal with how to do data transfer, how to look at the data, how to get data off your Garmin, how to use Garmin software called Basecamp to look at the data or transfer data. So that will be a follow-up to this one. So it's a nice little 1-2 punch where you're first getting familiar with your device and then how to actually look at and use the data that you record. That will be the second one. That will be in probably 2 or 3 weeks' time. Stay tuned for that too. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat box. I will monitor it, and I think Barbara is going to stop halfway through this, and she will give you time, and we'll look at the questions, and we'll see if we can hopefully all answer them. And this one, I think, will be a little bit longer than an hour. Of course, feel free if you're out of time to jump out, but there's a lot of ground to cover, so we're probably going over a little bit here. And then, of course, at the very end, we'll also have some more time for questions. But there will be a stopping point in the middle as well. With that said, I'm going to hand it over to Barbara, and she will tell us everything you need to know about a Garmin GPS. Go ahead, Barbara.
Hey, thank you. First, everybody, thank you for signing on. And Mike asked me to tell you just a little bit about myself, and it will be brief because this is a longer presentation. My husband and I retired here from New Hampshire, and I was a longtime member of the Appalachian Mountain Club. And during that time, I did do a couple Garmin sessions to teach people how to use them. I loved navigating. So when I came out here and joined the CMC, I said, what can I do to help navigation? So that's where we're at. The presentation I go about an hour and 5 minutes every time I have rehearsed it. I have a lot of slides. I think a PowerPoint is the best way probably to present this because I took pictures of my own Garmin device and put a lot of photos up so that you can find the correct menu in your own device. And I do hope that you have yours and that you'll be able to follow along. And Mike, I will ask you to interrupt me if somebody says I'm going too fast because I will move at a steady pace and hopefully we'll get through everything. The first thing I want to review though is I have to figure out, does everybody see my screen? What is a satellite network? This is what your GPS is based off of. So GPS is the global positioning service that was developed by the United States. It has 24 satellites that are in different orbital planes at all times. You'll hear about GLONASS. That's a global navigation system that Russia developed. It also has 24 satellites. You have increased accuracy when you use GLONASS. WAAS is the Wide Area Augmentation System that was developed by the FAA for improving accuracy with flights. Egnos is another European navigation service that was developed, and the most recent is called Galileo. It's a global navigation system developed by several European countries, and it was initiated in 2016, but became fully operational sometime in the past few months. I'm not sure exactly when, but it has a total of 30 satellites, of which 24 are always operational and 6 are on standby. Galileo gives you your best satellite service. What are the pros of using a handheld device? It's controversial, but it does always give you a high degree of accuracy. It always shows your location. You can get map detail that will show contour lines, ridges, ravines, cliffs, etc. You can zoom in and out on your map for more or less detail. You can create, record, and share waypoints and tracks. You can do that at home on Basecamp, and you can do that in the field. You can set a waypoint and navigate to it. You can wirelessly send tracks and waypoints in the field to another compatible unit. You have a trip odometer that can record any data you program it to record, such as distance, time, elevation, and coordinates. And datum fields can be customized on all the pages. It has a compass and an altimeter. You can monitor barometric pressures, which is useful for watching on incoming storms. And every Garmin device can take a microcard of 32 gigabytes to increase the memory. The basic model does have limited capacity. What are the cons? The biggest problem is user error. People make mistakes with their Garmins. Garmins don't make mistakes. Batteries die. That's a small map screen, maybe 2¼ inches in diameter. So it's kind of small, but you can zoom in and out. It does not show slope angle shading that you would get with CalTopo or Gaia. The slope shading is very useful, especially if you're out in the wintertime. And the Basecamp waypoints and tracks are not always accurate. I don't think it updates often enough to keep current. And another big problem is that you can become over-reliant on a Garmin handheld device. And really, you should never, ever use a handheld device alone. Everybody will tell you that map and compass skills are your first line of navigation. And I look forward to hearing what Mike will have to say about maps next week. There are several different Garmin devices that you can shop for. The most common that hikers use are the GPSmap series and the eTrex models. I have not seen people use Oregons or Montanas. If it's marked with an S, that means that it has sensors, which include compass, altimeter, and accessory sensors such as a thermometer, which I actually have purchased. If your Garmin is marked with a T, it means that it has preloaded topo map on a 100,000 scale and you're not able to do routing. If it's marked with an X, it's a preloaded topo active map and you are able to do routing. A C indicates a camera and the I indicates that it has inReach capability. So what are the differences between devices? The GPS network that they access can be different. The more recent models, in particular, the GPSmap 66 has Galileo capability. My old model, which is a 62, does not. Some models are able to send and receive messages, but you need a subscription for that. Some have the ability to interface with an iPhone to send and receive alerts. Some have a camera, some have the option for satellite imagery, but again, you need a subscription for that. Different devices will have a touch screen or a toggle button or push buttons, which becomes important if you're using gloves in the winter and want to try to activate it. Some have preloaded maps, as I mentioned. The electronic compass that comes on most, but not all models is a tilt compensated 3-axis compass, and I'll talk more about that later. Some have an altimeter. The internal storage capacity on the newer models is between 4 and 8 gigabytes, and my old 62 only can hold 2 gigabytes, so of course I have another card. Some are compatible with other sensors, such as a temperature sensor or heart rate monitor, but the biggest difference is the size of the display on the screen, the size of the device, and of course, the cost. Garmin has great support websites. You can download a user manual specifically for your model. It comes with a quick start guide, which can be 4 to 5 pages, and the full manual itself can be anywhere between 20 and 50 pages. I've looked at a few of them. You can get Garmin updates either onto your device or to your mapping programs if they're Garmin programs. And Garmin does have a Basecamp that is a free download, which is basically the start for Basecamp if you're going to use that. So let's get into it. I'm going to walk you through a lot of the options on your device. This is my device. The first thing I recommend is that you have a lanyard on it. It comes with a smaller one. I didn't have enough reach in front of me with the smaller one, so I have changed it to a longer cording with a small carabiner at the end that lets me move it from pack to pack. I did have, this is my third Garmin. I have had 2 of them ripped off my pack, and I had to backtrack about a quarter mile to find them dangling from a tree. So don't lose it. Make sure it's attached to your pack. The other thing I recommend is a protective screen. If you look on the edges, you'll see that the edges of my Garmin are all beat up, but my screen is nice. It's completely intact because I have a protective screen. The first one I had that lasted for a couple years on this device was a heavy duty plastic, but I took it off so I could get good pictures, good photographs for this presentation. And I ordered a replacement, and I got a tempered glass product, which is really very nice. It was about $15 from Amazon. It took 4 weeks to come, but that included 4 different screens and shipping, so that was a good deal. So anyway, put a lanyard on and use a protective screen. Now these are the buttons on my GPSmap 62S. I'll put up pictures in a minute of the eTrex. All the menus function the same, all the Garmin's function the same. On this one, you have the Find button over here. That's what you use to open your search menu, and I will talk more about all of these as we go through the menus. The Mark button is what you use to save your current location as a waypoint. This Quit button will allow you to either cancel a function or back up one page, return to the previous menu. That's back up just one page. We'll use that a lot. The Enter button allows you to activate options. The Menu button is what you use to open your options. The Page is what will allow you to scroll through the main pages. The arrows let you pan through your map or scroll up and down on the menus, on the options. And of course, the in and out are the zoom buttons. On the eTrex, the buttons all function in the same manner, but they're different. These arrows on your eTrex are the zoom in and out. This is your menu button here to access menus. This is the back button, which will back you up one page. This is your on, off, and also your light control button. This is the toggle, and it will pan around your map, move left and right, up and down, and when you want to make a selection, you press until it clicks, and that's how you'll access your options on the eTrex. So now make sure that you have your Garmin device turned on. I'll give you a minute to do that if you haven't turned it on yet. The first thing I get to a trailhead is turn it on, because it takes a minute for the device to get a satellite connection and to find your location. So turn it on, and then...
Hey, Barbara, can
Yes?
I just briefly interject here, because we had one comment about Oregon Garmin's. Those are the ones that have a touch screen rather than buttons. But they should have the same menu, right? They should also have Find and Mark and all that stuff. It's just, instead of a button, it's like on the screen, right?
So I don't have those devices. I've never seen them, but I did call Garmin to make sure I had accurate information. And they told me that every Garmin device that they might make has the same menu, the same submenu, the same options. And the biggest difference really is the display and the size of the device. So if you have an Oregon or a Montana, you should be able to find these same functions in your device. It's all Garmin program. Does that answer, I hope, the question?
Great. Yeah, I hope so. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. But that was a good interruption. Thank you for that. So now once you've turned it on, I would like you to just press your on-off button just halfway, and you will get this screen. It's your backlight screen. When you tap that lightly, you'll get the date and the time. You'll get this backlight bar that shows how bright or how dim your entire screen is. You'll have battery power down here and your GPS connection over here. If you tap this button from this page, this bar will move up and down, back and forth. The brighter it is, the more battery power you will use. And the dimmer it is, obviously you will be able to conserve battery power. So this is an option that I like to put it right around 50% because it does help conserve battery. So we're going to look at the options. and help you customize. We're going to customize the data settings on your pages. We're going to customize your navigational settings, and we're going to customize your map settings. Each page or screen will have its own menu, and there is often more than one way to select an option. So first, we're going to start with the setup option. And to do that, I would like you to use your page button, and I'm doing it with you, so hopefully I can not go too fast, but use your page button and scroll to the main menu. You'll get this little icon right here, and it will immediately flip to a page that looks something like this. Now, I've already customized my GPS, so most of my pages will look similar, but they'll be different. And I'll show you how to fix all of that. But you'll use your arrows here to scroll up or down through this menu. And what I would like you to do, you'll have either a grid view that looks like this, or you'll have a list view that looks like this. And you are in the setup options. So what I would like you to do first is to scroll to display. It's got this little light bulb. Scroll to display and press enter. And you should get a menu that looks like this. Your first field on the top is the Backlight Timeout. Now for the presentation, press enter, and I'm going to ask you to select stays on, because then your backlight will stay on throughout the next hour. But when you're done, you want to put that back to either 15 or 30 seconds, because that's really all the time you need when you're using it in the field. When you're experimenting with it or exploring it at home, turn the backlight timeout on so that it stays on. But so select times on by pressing enter. The next option that you have to choose from is battery save, and obviously you will turn that on because that will conserve your battery power, and it does that by turning off the timeout light and other screen lights. The next option for you to look at is colors, and if you enter that, you have automatic, daytime, or nighttime. For now, I would select automatic. That works well for me, but you can explore different background and highlight colors for daytime or nighttime. Again, that's something you can look at home. Now, the next one is the main setup and find style. I have list on mine. So if you enter that, you'll see that you have an option to select either a list or a grid. That was the first page I showed you, and I happen to like the list, so I have selected list for that. And enter when you've made your selection. And the last option is screen capture. That is not useful at all for hiking. I don't even know why it's on here. It allows you to take a screen capture of your device, but you're not ever going to be able to find it into the Garmin, so you can just ignore that. Now, we're going to go back to the setup option. To do that, you press quit just one time, or you press the back button, and you should be back in your setup option. And you'll still have the same display of items to choose from. The next one I'd like you to scroll through is System, and enter that. Your first section is the GPS, and I have WAS and Egnos selected. Now, my choices on my 62 model are normal, which means the GPS, the US system of satellites, or WAS or Egnos, which is enhanced by the FAA satellites. If you have a newer model, you might have GLONASS or Galileo. And if you select those options, you'll have even more accuracy than mine. But you have to remember that when you select those, you will use up more battery power. But that's okay, because that's why you got this. If I had one that did GLONASS or Galileo, I'd be selecting that. So enter and select whatever your preferred option is for your satellite setup. The next option is language. That's easy. Your next option is battery type. Now, alkaline batteries have a limited time life. They seem to drain much quicker, but they're cheaper. Lithium batteries are better for the cold weather. You can get a good 1 or 2 days, probably 2 days with lithium batteries, and maybe even more if you don't use your Garmin a lot. They are better for cold. I switched to rechargeable, and this is the system that I use, EBL. It's worked fine for me for a couple years now. I can charge AA or AAA. I use those for my headlamp. And I always carry a spare set of batteries in my front pocket because it's just easier to have them convenient, and I don't want to run out of battery power. Now, if you have to change your batteries in the field, your device has a memory retention, so it will retain the data from that day's hike. It won't erase it. You change your batteries, but you do have to turn your device back on after you've changed your batteries. So that's where you make your battery selection. Now, back on the same page that you were on, below battery type, there's something called interface. And the interface is what sets your device to use a Garmin format if you're exchanging data with your computer. Now, this may also be changed in newer models. In my 62S, I select Garmin Serial because that's what will link my device to my base camp on my computer. These other options are for more advanced mapping. They might even have something to do with free downloaded maps, which I have not used. I know the RTCM here is for marine mapping. If you have an eTrex, I think that your options are either USB port or mass storage. I have a friend that puts his on mass storage, and he loads his tracks from his device into a file in his computer and does not use Basecamp. So if you have different options from mine, you should refer to your Garmin manual and select the best one that will let you exchange information. And of course, if you are confused by that, I'm not techie, I'm not a tech person at all, so I would be confused by that. But I've found that if I call Garmin, they're great help. So, but anyway, that's what that option for the interface is. So make your selection. And when you're done, again, press quit one time, and you will be back to your setup option. And this time, I would like you to scroll to units. It has a little ruler by the side. Your first option is distance and speed. This is where you select how you record your distance. If you select statute, it will be in miles. You also have the option for metric if you prefer that. The same thing with elevation. You can select feet or metric. Depth is when you're using this for marine use. Temperature allows you to select between Fahrenheit and centigrade. And I already mentioned that I did purchase the thermometer. It's an accessory device. And so I do have it set for Fahrenheit to record temperatures. And then the last unit of measurement that you can select is pressure. You have lots of choices there. I select millibars. It seemed to me that NOAA reports out in New England were in millibars. And when I read them now in New England, I find that they're in inches. But it's all for barometric pressure, so select whichever one you would like to use. And when you're done with that, again, press quit. It takes you back.
Excuse me.
Yes?
How do I get to this screen? I'm behind you. How do I get to this screen that you have displayed?
That I have right now?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to have you press page and scroll to that main menu again with the house. And when you get to main menu, find setup options. Do you have that yet?
Okay, main menu, enter.
Yep. And then find setup options.
I don't know. Oh, I have setup.
Setup. Mm-hmm.
Enter.
Yep. And then to get to this screen, you would select units.
Not there.
What device do you have?
GPSmap 62S. Garmin.
I suspect that you're not in the setup screen.
I'm not.
No.
Setup, enter. Now do I go to system?
Nope. Nope.
Where do I go?
Scroll up or down, and you'll find units.
No, I don't see any units.
Yeah, we have an inReach and it's totally different.
Oh, units. Okay, here we are. Enter. Okay, I've got you. I'm on the screen now.
Yep. So even if your device is different from mine, older or newer, you will have an option to find units. And if you don't find it on the main menu when you scroll through that, you will find it in the setup option. So the inReach is probably the 66, is that correct? So it may be different, but remember that all the Garmin devices function very similarly to each other. And you should be able to find the units.
Okay.
Okay,
Good.
and you know, also this is being recorded and you'll get a copy of the recording, so it will be easier and you'll have more time if you need it to
Okay.
find the options. So if you don't find it this first time around, you will be able to find it, especially when you start exploring it. I mean, you're learning that it's available right now, and you will find it when you're at home, when you spend more time using it. Does that help you, Grayson?
Yes, it does. Thank you, Barbara.
Okay, you're welcome. So now from this page, I would like you to back up one, and you're still in setup, and then track down to position format. That has a little globe next to it. And when you open up position format, it should be something like this. So what is position format? That is the map data coordinate system that is used for mapping programs. Other countries have different coordinate systems, so don't select those. But if you enter on position format, you'll see that you have lots of options. But the one that you should select will be one of these formats. They're latitude and longitude formats. HDDD.DDD is decimal. Some people prefer that because it's easy to type. Then you have HDs and Ms, that's degrees and minutes. Then the third option is HDM with S, degrees, minutes, and seconds. And you'll find those options under position format. And I actually prefer the third one, which is degrees, minutes, and seconds. So I have that configured on my device. And the reason I like that is because both of these maps, the 14er series and the National Geographic maps, use that HDDD SS.S system for their coordinates. Now you can also scroll under this position format and you can find UTMs, which is Universal Transverse Mercator. It's a metric system. These maps also have UTM lines. The differences between them, you know, they're just different methods of positioning a point on a map. They're both good. Some people prefer one or the other. I have not read anything that says one is better or worse than the other. They're both equally good. And you can get coordinate systems regardless of which one that you use. And also if you happen to use CalTopo to make maps, which I think Mike might talk about, you can also format CalTopo to match the coordinate system that you're putting into your device. So to go back again to this page, to the position format page, the next box selection that you have is called Map Datum. And again, that's a coordinate system on which your map is structured. And WAGS 84 is what Garmin recommends. It is the most recent data system. You'll probably see NAD 27, NAD 83. They're all very closely related. They may be off by just a few meters from each other, but Garmin does recommend that you use WGS 84 as your map datum. And that's also what many other people use, so that would be consistent between devices. And then if you select WGS 84, your map spheroid, I think, will automatically default to WGS 84. It does on my device, and it probably does the same on yours. But again, that's just all a coordinate and mapping system that's used to make paper maps and positions in your satellite device. So once you've selected that, again, press quit. You will be back up in the setup option. And now scroll to tracks and enter that. It's got a little pair of feet. And you should have something that's similar to this. This is where you'll set up how your device will record and store tracks. This first option is the track log. When you enter that, the top one on mine says do not record, which means the tracking is off. The next option is record but do not show. And the third option is record show on map, which is what I prefer. So when I select record show on map, every time I turn my device on, it automatically starts dropping breadcrumbs and recording, so I can get a big ball of breadcrumbs when I'm just standing in the parking lot getting ready to hike. Other people prefer to set it at do not record, and that means that every time they turn their device on, they have to also remember to turn on their tracking log. And that's exactly why I have it set the way I do, because I would never remember to do that. So you can do either or as long as you're consistent and remember how you set your device up. Your next option is your recording method. I started with auto. That's perfectly fine to start with that. The GPS will decide when and how often to drop a breadcrumb to record your track, but you can also select distance or time, and then you will select a recording interval for each of them. Now, if you select a recording interval that is shorter, it will drop more breadcrumbs and create more data, and that means that your memory will fill up quicker. So if you have auto and you set a recording interval of more often, you will use up a little more memory in your device. That's okay if you want to do that. Now, the last option is auto archive. And if you select that, you have an option of when full, daily, or weekly. If you select daily, that means that your device will automatically organize your track. They will move it from your daily location into an archive. If you select weekly, it will move all your saved tracks on a weekly basis. And if you select when full, it will move it into an archive when the memory on your device is full. I just leave mine on when full. I don't really use the archive that much, but I know people do. The last option is the color. That's where you can just set the color of your track to record. I like red. It's nice and bright and it shows up well on the map screen. So when you have finished with that, you know what you're going to do next. You're going to press quit, and it's going to back you up one page again, still in your setup system. And now we're going to pick an easy one. We're going to go to time. Time is really easy. You can select a time format of 12 hours or 24 hours. I like 24 hour. And you can select time zone. If you enter time zone, you have a choice of different United States time zones, or you can just put it on automatic. If it's on automatic, it will automatically adjust to the time zone that you travel to. And that means that it will correctly timestamp your tracks. So once you've set those options up, press quit, and you return again to your setup option. And then I would like you to choose altimeter. This one can be a little confusing. When you choose altimeter, you get this screen. Now the altimeter is what shows your elevation and measures your barometric pressure. If you select auto calibration, enter that, you have a choice of on or off. When you select on, it means that your device will automatically calibrate your altimeter every time you turn it on. So I have opted for on. Now, barometer mode is the confusing part. You have a choice of variable or fixed. The barometer is affected by many things, including calibration, climbing, descending, weather that's coming in, or satellite interference. It's never 100% accurate. It really will give you a trend more than an accurate number. So if you select variable elevation, your barometer will function while you're moving. If you select a fixed elevation, the device will assume that it is stationary and that any changes will be from changing weather. That's very confusing. Variable elevation is the one that is most accurate for hiking, but again, it's not 100%. So select variable for that. The next option is pressure trending. And if you enter that, you have an option for save when power is on, which means your device will save the pressures only when it's turned on. The other option is save always. And my device, if it's set to save always, will continue to record the barometric pressure every 15 minutes. I don't know how it does that, but that's what that option is for. What I like about this is that you can follow the barometric pressure when you're hiking. If you're on an extended day trip and don't have good weather reports, you can follow the barometric pressures. You can you can explore plot types at home, but you can compare barometric pressures to elevation or time or distance. And if it's dropping, then a storm is coming in. So what's a bombogenesis? I learned that term when I was in New England. It's when the barometric pressure drops 24 millibar points in 24 hours, and that is a huge blizzard in New England. It is a huge hurricane in Florida, and it is a cyclone when it's in the middle of the ocean. And that's why I started following millibars. But so you can watch the pressures while you're hiking, especially on an extended trip. And if you see it dropping, then you know that something bad is coming. Now scroll to Calibrate Altimeter. There are a couple different ways to find that. When you find it, press enter. And the first question that you'll get is, do you know the correct elevation? If you are at a trailhead and know the elevation, you can enter yes, and you can correct the number. If you are on the summit and know that, and you know what the summit elevation is, you can say yes and set that number. And if you don't know the elevation, you can select no. So I'm just going to select no. You press that. Your next question is, do you know the correct pressure? I don't think any of us knows the correct barometric pressure right now, nor will I ever. So I always select no for that. And the last question is, do you want to use the current GPS altitude of, mine says 9,300 feet. I live in Keystone. That's close enough, so I would say yes. And now my GPS has been calibrated as carefully as it can be. You can calibrate as often as you want. Now, when do you calibrate? Nope, sorry, that's my next thing. So I'm going to ask you again to press quit just one time, and you'll be back in the setup option. And I would like you to scroll to page sequence. And when you scroll to page sequence, you'll get something that looks like this. Remember, mine is customized, so it will look different. Now, page are the main pages that you can access easily and quickly. And so I like to have map, compass, trip computer, elevation plot, and track manager on there. You see at the bottom that you can add a page. So I don't think many of you have track manager in there because that's something that I had to add. So I'm going to ask you to add that. And if you do have that already there, then maybe look for the satellite page and add that. So enter, add page, and then scroll down and select track manager or something different if you prefer it. And press enter again, and you should have it on this page. Now, another thing you can do while you're on this page is change the sequence of how your pages are. And I like to have my map and my compass side by side when I scroll through my pages, because that's what I use when I'm navigating most. So let's change the order of one of them. Select compass and press enter. When you do that, you'll get a menu that looks like this with move, insert, or remove. We're going to move it. So press enter to move it. And when you do that, whatever page is selected will be highlighted in a different color. Use your arrows to move it up or down and relocate it. And then press enter again, and you will have repositioned it. That's moving it compass down, that's repositioning it. So you can add or remove pages. If you remove something, you're not taking it out of your Garmin, you're just removing it from this screen. You can always add it back in. So you can change the order, you can add, and you can remove, and you can do it on a couple other pages in your device also. So that just helps you customize it. So the pages that I like to start with, as I said, and in this order, are map, compass, trip computer, elevation plot, and track manager. And I like to keep main menu there all the time. So now we can have a little pause. Remember, you can always press enter or menu to find options, and you can customize it the way you like. So I'll take questions now. Let me look at the chat.
All right, we have one question. Ray was asking about the Oregon 700. Let's see. You couldn't find the tracks option in the Oregon 700? Do you know if that has a different name there?
Well, we're going to be talking about tracks again a little bit later on, so maybe there's a different way that he can find it in the Oregon.
Okay.
But first, Ray, make sure you're in the setup option for what I just went through. And that's the confusing part. Go from main menu to setup and then look for tracks. And if it's not there, we are going to be talking about tracks a little differently in a short bit of time. Does that help?
I'm looking as you're making these suggestions. I kept using my back arrow and I'd see all those other options you were talking about. But when I did the back arrow to look for tracks is when I couldn't find it on that menu.
You might have backed up one too many times. And Carol, I see also you're saying you don't have page sequence. So
Same with the Oregon. The page sequence was the other thing that wasn't on that list.
okay, so it might be that you're still in the main menu looking at your list of options and not in the setup option. You have to, on mine, you have to go to setup, and that might be the problem, but you know it's available. So when you're at home and when you get a copy of this PowerPoint, you can look again. It's very confusing the first time.
Yeah,
you try to do it.
I'm in setup, but there's just that option isn't there. And also selecting the color of a track wasn't an option when we were back there.
Let's see.
I'm sure it's somewhere, but
yeah, it might be in the track that when we talk about tracks in a little bit, it might,
okay.
You might find it there, but you know it's available. And I know that you have that option. What model is yours, Carol?
This one that I'm playing with right now is the Oregon 600. I do have a Garmin InReach, you know, that I've just bought, but this is just a regular GPS, the
so then
Oregon.
I apologize. I've never had an opportunity to put my hands on an Oregon, so I know it's in there somewhere because every Garmin device has that.
Yeah.
That's something you'll have to explore at home.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay.
For the page sequence of in the Oregon, I wonder if it works similar to your smartphone, where you just click on something and then you can drag it, like either drag it up or down the menu, or if you're looking at an icon screen, you just drag the icon to the end or to the front or wherever you want it. They might have it set up that way rather than having a page sequence specific menu item.
Quite possibly, especially since the Oregon has the touch screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I get it, I should look at the user manual for that. I'll try to do that and see if I can find an answer at another time. Okay,
And
shall we move on?
Marsha was asking if the eTrex 20 has an altimeter, and I don't think it does.
It depends. Depends on the model. Not all models have that. The more basic models don't. It has to have the sensor option. So she'd have to look more into the kind of model that she has. That was one of the differences.
Right.
Okay, so now let's look at the map pages, compass, trip odometer, and more on tracks. And this will function a little bit differently because we're done with the setup options. Oh, I made a list of other options that you can look at home because there's just so much on here to cover in 1 hour. But you can explore the tones, which will be the key beeps that you set up for navigating to waypoints or whatever you decide. You know, you can look at those options for tones. You can look at the antenna sensor option. This is where you would link a heart rate monitor, bite cadence, or temperature sensor. You can look at your satellite option. It'll show you which satellites are providing information. And if you have the ability to create routes, you can look at those options also, but I'll talk more about that when I do the next session. So there's still lots of options for you to explore that I'm going to skip over so that we can get to your bigger pages. So again, use your page button or your menu button and scroll to maps, which will have this tiny icon, which will immediately go to a page that looks something like this. Now, press menu when you find your map page, which should be easy to find. Press menu and scroll to setup map. When you enter setup map, you should have options like this. The first one is orientation, and you have a choice between north up or track up. If you select north up, north will always be at the top of your device, which is what I like because that's how your paper maps are. If you select track up, then the direction that you're heading will always be at the top of your device, much like navigation aids in cars. So select your preference. The next one that I want you to scroll to is data fields. And if you enter data fields, press enter on data fields and select too small. You have lots of options there, but select too small data fields for now. And the reason I like to select that is because it will give you 2 data fields on your map. And I like to have more map and less fields on this page. So I always select 2 data fields. Now, if you were to select dashboard, I don't want you to do that now, but I'm going to show you what it looks like because it's a little bit different. But this is also under data fields. You selected too small, but if I'll show you what dashboard looks like, it gives you more options for your appearance on your screen. If you select the compass dashboard, it will put a compass on your map page. If you select the automotive, it will put automotive information. And if you select stopwatch, it will put stopwatch information. So you have these dashboard options. The only one that might be used for hiking is putting the compass on your map page, but you don't really need to do that because you have a compass page. But I wanted to show you what it was only because it can be confusing. So make sure you stick with too small. Now this next setup, again on your map page, is the advanced map setup. You can look at that at home. That's where you can explore text size, zooming options, how much detail you have on your map, etc. The more important thing that I want you to look at right now is map information. So enter, select map, and you should get something that looks like this. So you can enable and disable any map that is on your device. I have this one disabled. This is just a basic Garmin map that's a road map. You should only have one map enabled at a time. So I disabled this one because it's pretty useless for hiking. I apparently bought a Topo US in 2008 when I started using Garmin, and that's a very basic Garmin mapping. I disabled that because I then purchased a microcard, Topo US 24K of the Southwest, and I have that map enabled because it gives me the most information. It's the most detailed. I paid $100 for that. And I also have purchased other mapping cards from Garmin. I bought one for Chile that was $80. I'm not sure that one was worth it, but I will tell you that I definitely like the Southwest option. And when you purchase maps from Garmin, you can either download them directly into your device, or you can purchase a micro SD card. I told you that every Garmin device can take up to a 32 gigabyte micro SD card. It can be blank, and you can use it to load maps or tracks, or you can purchase one that's already preloaded from Garmin, which is what this one is. This is the Southwest 24K, and this is where it gets inserted. It's underneath your batteries. So this little silver locking mechanism slides forward and flips up. You put your chip in there, obviously with the gold contacts facing down, and slide that locking mechanism back in place. This is flimsy. Twice in the field when I changed batteries, I almost lost both the silver piece and my chip, my card. So be very careful, especially with gloves on, if you're changing your batteries in the field. But this is where it goes. And then you put your cover back on and you have your options of maps. But that's how you add a card. So now go back to your map page and press menu. And now scroll to change data fields. So this is where I'll show you how to change the data fields. And this style is the same for every page that we'll be going through. So enter change data fields. And when you do that, one of your data fields will be highlighted in a different color. So press enter again, and all these data fields will open up for you. There are so many of them. They differ a little bit from page to page. They're alphabetical, But for your map, you have all these options that start with accuracy of your GPS, your bearing, your battery level. If you've set a waypoint, distance to destination, your elevation. Here you have an option for coordinates or your odometer. Here are your speed measurements, sunrise, sunset, temperature, time of day, your moving time. You just have so many options. So explore that at home and decide what you would like to put on your mapping page. Once you select an option for one data field, you use your arrows to scroll over to the next. That data field will become highlighted, and again, you get to choose more options. So on my mapping page, I already told you I prefer to have time of day and my elevation, and I don't select anything else for my mapping page, but you can add data for other pages. So now use your page button and scroll to your compass page, and it will automatically go to something that looks like this.
Barbara, can you briefly point out again where the data page is?
Yes, I'm going to actually show you how to do it on the compass page. It's the same style.
Okay.
Okay. Yep. So the data field that we just scrolled through on the map page, we're going to do the same thing on the compass page. The system or the style is the same. So I'll go through it again. Now this is my compass page. Most current models have a tilt compensated 3-axis electronic compass. That's what the S stands for. That means that no matter how you hold your device, whether it's upright, upside down, flat, whatever, your compass is always active. If you don't have that electronic compass, you have a simpler GPS compass. And if you don't have this in your device, this might be part of the reason you're not finding your compass that's working. If it's a basic GPS compass, your device will only activate when you're moving at a walking speed. So if you have that basic GPS compass and not the electronic one, if you have the basic GPS compass, it will only engage when you're moving at walking speed. So that might be one of your issues. Now, to set up your compass page, press Menu and scroll to Set Up Heading. When you find that, you'll get a page that looks very similar to this. The top option is your display, and you have a choice. Have you just look at two of those choices. You have your choice of directional letters, which will just give you cardinal letters like north, east, south, or west. And if you select numeric degrees, you will get a number for your heading. So select numeric because that's what you use when you're navigating. Your next option is your north reference, and you have an option of true or magnetic. The satellites automatically will account for the declination if you select magnetic. And I prefer magnetic because when I hike with people, we usually use compass. We'll refer to the GPS, but I told you mapping compass is the most important thing. And if I've set a waypoint in my device, the bearing that it gives me will be magnetic, and that can be just transferred right to a real compass. Now scroll down to skip over that pointer for a second and scroll down to compass. If you enter compass, you have an option of auto or off. If you select off, the electronic compass for your device is turned off, and that will save battery power. Some people do that. If you select auto, it's on, it's functioning and it's on. So now go to the go-to line and pointer for the bearing, which I have selected as small. These are the options that you'll get and this won't show on your device yet because you don't have a navigation point set. These two photos have navigation points set. This is your option for a small bearing arrow, and this is a large bearing arrow. So you just get to select if you want a small thin one or a wider, fatter one. I like the small thin one, but this is what your device will look like when you have those selected. And then lastly, find Calibrate Compass, and there are a couple different ways to find that. If you're still on this page, which I hope you are, you just select Calibrate Compass. But if somehow you ended up back at your main compass page, then press Menu and you will find Calibrate Compass. And I'll show you how to do that. So when you have found Calibrate Compass, press Enter. And it will prompt you and tell you how to do it. So press Start, and it says, slowly turn the unit in the directions shown. So when you press Start, you rotate it like a record. So do that now, and you rotate it slowly. If you go too fast, it tells you. Everybody should be beeping. Select Continue to start the next step in the calibration. Enter, Continue, and you roll it like a kayak. You should all be beeping again. Select Continue to start the next step, which is flipping it forward like a somersault. So press Continue and flip it forward like a somersault. And either you did it correctly or it failed. I think I went too fast. But that's how you calibrate your compass. When do you calibrate it? You calibrate it every time you change the batteries, after you travel a long distance, or with wide temperature changes. And when you calibrate it, you should do it away from magnetic interference, such as cars or power lines, and you should not do it inside a building, so you'll have to calibrate your compass again when you go outside. And be careful with the magnetic attachment on your hose, because that could also throw it off. So now, I hope you're back on your compass page. If not, press through page to find your compass page with the 4 data fields. And press Menu. And select Change Dashboard. When you find Change Dashboard, select the small data fields, and you can explore these other options at home, but for now select Small Data Fields, and it will give you a compass that looks like this. Now to change the data fields, press Menu, scroll to Change Data Fields, and that's when your data fields will be highlighted again in a different color. So I had a question about this. So let's walk through the first one. So press Enter and select whichever one you want. I'm going to keep mine at heading. Press Enter, and that will be in the first data field box. Scroll over to the right, press Enter again, and maybe you want to pick elevation for that one. Select elevation, then you can scroll down and over to number 3, and then again to number 4, and you can change your data fields. That's how you change your data fields. I like to put navigational fields on my compass, so that means that I would be looking for, and I change them all the time depending on what I'm doing or who I'm with, but you can experiment with heading or bearing, distance to destination, time to destination, elevation, speed, GPS accuracy, and more. So the more you use it for navigating, you will figure out what kind of data you want to have on your compass page. And I'm also going to point out that this GPS accuracy of 24 feet, it's way off, but that's because I am in my house. So that shows you the effect of being inside a building. So I hope that answers the questions again on data fields. And let's see. I'm looking through my pages to make sure I have everything here. This is what your compass and map page will look like when you set waypoint data, which you have not set yet, but this is what your compass page will look like. Your data fields for navigation will be in these 4 data field boxes. So I've set a destination for the Dillon Nature Preserve. This is the heading from my house to get there. In magnetic, there's a little M. If you had that, if you selected true for your orientation, that would have a T. This is the distance to the Dillon Nature Preserve. And my arrow that I selected is now pointing directly up. So this is the direction that I would be traveling. That's where you align your arrow when you use your Garmin for navigating. Now, my waypoint data on my map page, remember I have more map and just 2 data fields, so I still have time of day and elevation. There's nothing up here indicating navigation, but now I have this light pink line, and if I scrolled out, the other end of it would be at the waypoint that I selected, so it's showing me that I need to go in the southeast direction. So that's what those 2 pages will look like when you have a waypoint set. And they don't look like that yet because you did not yet set a waypoint on your compass page. So now we have a couple more big pages to look at. Scroll to Trip Odometer, and you'll get something that looks like this. This is a trip odometer with a large data field. And now I'm hoping you get the flow of how this works. So I'm just going to talk you through this one and not show you pictures. The first thing I want you to do is press Menu and scroll to Change Dashboard. And on this page, select Large Data Field, press Enter, and you should have a page that looks very similar to this. So with large data fields on my trip odometer, I have my battery power here, my time, my GPS signal. I selected elevation. This is where I like to watch elevation. I changed these data fields, but currently I have moving average here. I have my temperature for my thermometer. I have my trip odometer here, which gives me my total mileage for the day or for my hike. If I set a waypoint, it will show the distance to my destination here, but I don't have a waypoint set, so it's blank. I put coordinates down here, and I have sunset in my last data field. And again, I change these all the time too, depending on what I want to do. So the next thing, how do you change your data fields? Again, press Menu and scroll to Change Data Fields. And then you should have a highlighted data field. And again, you press Enter, and you can scroll through all your options and decide what you want to put on your trip odometer. So I use my trip odometer page to record trip data, and I use the map and compass pages when I'm navigating. Now, also from the trip odometer page, remember I told you that I have my track set to record every time I turn my device on. Because of that, when I'm standing in a parking lot, time will accumulate and breadcrumbs will be dropped. So you have to remember to reset your trip odometer page if you have your track set to record all the time. So to do that, you're on your trip odometer page, press Menu and scroll up to Reset over here. And when you enter that, you'll get this menu over here, and I just scroll right down to Clear Track and Trip Data, reset both, because that's what I want to reset. I want to reset any errant breadcrumbs that have been dropped in the parking lot and any timed data. So you press Reset Both. And when you do that, you get a, so go ahead and do that. And then you get a message that says, are you sure you wish to reset all trip data, timers, distances, etc.? And yes, I'm sure. So I select yes. And then my trip odometer will be back to 0. So now, just a couple more pages, and you're doing a great job hanging in there. I know it's a lot. Scroll to Elevation Plot, because there's one more thing on here that you can't access elsewhere, and I want to show it to you. When you find Elevation Plot, what I want to show you is how to record your total ascent. You can't find this anywhere else, and everybody likes to know what their vertical is for the day. How do you do that? You're going to change your data field. Press Menu, select Change Data Field. One of the data fields is highlighted. You press Enter and scroll down all the way to T for total ascent and select that. So you don't have that option for total ascent anywhere else that I've found anyway. You have to do that from your elevation plot. All right, and now another big page. It might be the last one. Scroll to Track Manager, and maybe this will help with some of the other questions. When you open up your track manager page, you have current, and you have archived tracks, and you have saved tracks. Your current track is what you've done for the day, and this is where you would save it. Your archived tracks, this menu right here, will have tracks that your Garmin device has automatically moved out of saved tracks. Your saved tracks are down here. So when you want to save a track, you press enter for current. When you do that, you get a menu that looks something like this. You have the option to save the entire track. You have the option to save a portion. If you click on save portion, you'll have segments that pop up. You can view your map on your map page. You can look at the elevation plot, and you can set the color here of your recorded track. So click on save track. You'll probably have some data on your device just from using it right now. When you click save track, you get in this kind of a menu. It is automatically dated and timed. Then you have a small keyboard, and this done button is what will save it. Now, when I'm in the parking lot at the end of a hike, I never take the time to key in the information that I want. I just scroll right down to done, because nobody really wants to wait for you while you fiddle with your Garmin, unless they're newbies too. But scroll right down to done and press enter. And then it will say, after you have saved it, it will say the current track is saved as the date and the time. Do you want to clear the current track and associated trip data? I always select no for that at the end of a hike, because I have accidentally erased my trip data. I told you people make mistakes. So I always select no when I'm saving my track, and I wait until I get home and move it into my Garmin Basecamp. And then I'll either edit it in my device or delete it. So I always select no for that. Now those are all the big pages. There are a couple other buttons that I would like you to look at, and these are quick. The find button, when you press find, again, you'll get either a grid or a list of other options, and you can change the orders of these just the way we changed the orders in the other pages. What I like at the top is geographic points, because it will show you man-made or land features such as peaks or rivers. If you select waypoints, you'll find waypoints that you've added to your device. Recent finds will open up anything that you've scrolled through in your Garmin. But I like these two boxes here, hospitals and coordinates. If you click on coordinates, it will give you your current location. So you have lots of ways to find your current coordinates. You can click on find and find this coordinate box. You can find your coordinates if you used a data field in your map page or your compass page or your trip odometer page. And if you have an emergency, you have your coordinates that are easy to find and give to search and rescue. And again, you can change the order of these the same way you change the order in your page sequence. So now everybody click on hospitals. I want to show you what that does. If you click on hospitals, it will list the hospitals in order of proximity to your location. So St. Anthony's is 5.5 miles away from me. Vail Valley is 21.5. St. Vincent's is in Leadville. But it shows you where the hospitals are and how close they are. Now select whichever hospital you choose, but select one. I've selected St. Anthony's. I clicked on that, and then I'll get a map page that shows its location. This is what my location is showing, St. Anthony's Hospital. And when I click go, it will set up a waypoint and send me to that hospital. Now that's a straight line. It's not going to show me how to navigate to it on trails or on the road. It'll be a straight line, but you will have set a waypoint. What I also want to show you is how to stop navigation. That took me a long time to find. When you have a waypoint set and you press find, you'll get an option to stop navigation. So you press find and select stop navigation, and that will stop navigating to that waypoint. Another button I want you to look at is mark. When you press mark, you get this menu. You're marking your current location as a waypoint. This little icon will automatically default to the one that was previously used. I use this for trailheads. Then they are sequentially numbered. Your coordinates again are here. If you click map, it'll show it on the map. If you click done, it will save it. Now, I sometimes forget what I'm marking for waypoints in the field, so I will take the time to make a very brief edit in this box or in notes, and I mean like maybe 3 or 4 letters just to remind me of what I'm marking a waypoint for. Or if I'm on a summit, I'll enter the icon and try to find the mountain icon to change the icon. But again, that's, you know, do that briefly just so you remember, and then do your full editing when you're at home, because you can move this all into your computer or you can edit it on your device. One last fun feature. Press find main menu, scroll to main menu, and then scroll down to share wirelessly. This is what allows you to share data in the field with a compatible device. The other compatible device has to be within 10 feet. So when you enter that, you get an option to either send or receive. We're going to send information, so press send. Then you get an option to select whether it's a waypoint or a track. This is a nice way to give a waypoint to another device when you're navigating, or to share a track that maybe somebody was looking for and couldn't find or download, or a track that got erased accidentally. But you can share information this way. When you select what you want to share, again, you press enter, and your device will start listening for the other unit. Now, in the meantime, the person receiving the information has selected receive. And when the two devices connect, they send the information right in the field. That's really a fun thing to use. It's nice. So my GPS workflow, before every hike, I do my homework. I import tracks from other sources to Basecamp. I transfer tracks and waypoints from Basecamp to my device. I review and compare CalTopo and other paper maps with my Basecamp information. At the start of a hike, I turn my device on as soon as I arrive at the trailhead to give it time for a satellite connection. I reset the trip odometer and the track log, and then I verify that I reset all that because I've made mistakes with that too. I check my battery power and my GPS signal, make sure they're both good, make sure I have batteries in my pocket. And then during the hike, I just hike and navigate. I continue to use paper maps and compass. At the end of a hike, I save my track in Track Manager, and I turn off my GPS, otherwise it records my trip home. And then when I get home, I manage data, which means I move it back and forth between my device and my Garmin Basecamp. And so what do you do now? You should use your Garmin everywhere you go. Use it on dog walks, family walks, go use it to the grocery store, use it on hikes. Explore the tracking and setting waypoint options. Set a go-to and navigate and look at your map and compass pages and see how they function, see what kind of information you can get from them. Use your GPS with a real map and compass to confirm all your information and all your actions. And then explore the data fields and see how you would like to customize your pages. And the important thing is that you have to use it in terrain that you're familiar with, because you need to know when you're making a mistake. You don't want to make a mistake in an area that you're not familiar with. You won't know you're making a mistake. So use it now, make your mistakes, and learn from it. So I hope you have fun with it. Do you have any questions?
Everybody's still playing with that Garmin, I think.
Isn't that wonderful? Did we lose anybody?
I don't think so. I think
Okay.
everybody's still there.
I have a battery question. I've tried using my Garmin where I press start and I go hiking, and it's a full day. I might be hiking for 10 hours, but before I get back to the trailhead, my batteries have died and I've lost it all. And
So what you need to do, Ray, you need to make sure that you have your options set up for conserving battery. And the first thing to do is, at the start, I showed you how to make sure that your backlight is dimmer. And then go to the option. I had you in setup, turn it so that your battery, like go to setup, let me give you the correct words. I had you go to display so that your backlight timeout stayed on. go into that option and set it for 15 seconds. You don't need more than 15 seconds. That will help conserve your battery also.
Okay.
And then, yep, so start with those battery conserving options. And also, if you use it a lot more when you're hiking, if you're pushing buttons and looking at it all the time, you're going to drain the battery. If it's cold, the battery's going to drain. The more you use it and get comfortable, you'll find that you actually use it less in the field. You use it when you really have to, and less because you're curious and learning, but more, you know, you use it less because you don't really have to rely on it a lot. So the less you rely on it, the longer your batteries will last, but also look into the methods I mentioned on how to conserve your battery power. That makes a difference. Yeah.
I have my backlight on 2 minutes, so I can certainly fix that.
Oh yeah, that's way too long.
But I also
Yeah.
never used it during the hike. I mean, I never purposely just let it be on and didn't play with it. All I wanted was all those statistics at the end of the hike. So
Yeah.
I didn't want to mess up my statistics by touching any buttons or doing anything. And so I really never used it. But
Is it stored in your pack in a position that your buttons might get pushed? Because that can happen also.
I had it hanging off my
Oh, okay.
backpack strap with the carabiner.
Yeah. Did you notice that it was more in colder temperatures that your battery drained?
Well, it was recently in the last month. I did a couple summits, and so you're going to be colder, you know, at 14,000 than
Yeah.
somewhere else. But that
Yes,
was
those are 30-degree temps, maybe even colder. So try lithium for colder weather, and that
Okay.
would qualify now on higher peaks because lithium does last a longer time. As you're doing, don't push the buttons a lot when you're hiking unless you really need to, but
Okay.
also look and change the 2 minutes to 15 seconds.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
The other thing I can think of that might affect that too is your rate of breadcrumbs.
Oh, exactly.
If you have not set it up on auto, but you have it set up for like every second it writes a breadcrumb to the memory card, then it's constantly doing stuff that way, and that might drain the battery too.
Yes, and you would find that in how to set up your tracks, Ray. So look at how you have your track recording set up and see how often it's dropping a breadcrumb and what the interval is.
Yeah, I haven't been there yet, so that's something I need to do.
Yep.
Barbara, if you were doing a backpack, for instance, and you're out there for 3 days and you do have to change the batteries, is there a preferred way of making sure that you continue recording the same track when you have changed it? Do you need to do anything when you change the batteries, and then do you have to reset something, or how does this work?
When you change the batteries, all the devices have memory retention, so you do not lose that data. It stays. The only thing you have to do is turn your device back on.
But it won't just start out with a new track record. It will continue from the old one.
It will continue. It will continue with the date and the time. It will continue. Yeah.
That's good.
And when I do multi-day trips, I save my daily tracks. I like to separate them. So I have separate.
Once you're in camp, you can do a save and then just start a fresh one the next day.
Yes, and when I've done extended trips with my Garmins, I did not have rechargeable batteries when I first did that, so I would just bring a supply of AA batteries, which you know are heavy, and then I would make sure I was very conservative on my use of my Garmin.
Yeah. Robbie was mentioning, if you want a full track for your 3-day backpack, for instance, you can, in base camp at home, you can join those day tracks back together, or you can leave them as day track and just say day 1, day 2, day 3, if you like through hiking, for instance, or something like that.
You can do all of your data management in base camp. You can join tracks, you can separate or split tracks. You know, the same thing with waypoints, you can edit them. There's a lot you can do in base camp.
But I guess that's part of your second session, isn't
Yes, it is. If there's an interest, I guess so, yes. I like the data management.
Alrighty, well, yeah, there's a whole nother layer, which is what you're going to do with the data, how to look at it, and how to get it off the device.
Right.
All right, any other questions?
Or?
All right, I think we're good to go then. Thank you so much, Barbara. I don't think that could have been done any better in a remote setting. At some point, when we can all get back together again, we'll have to repeat this in like a classroom setting where you and I can walk around and look at people's screen.
Well, I do plan to climb some 13ers, and they typically don't have trails. You have to really do your homework and get your navigational information. And I do hope to lead some when the COVID requirements are not quite as strict. So,
Yeah.
So, geez, if anybody wants to go with me, please look for those hikes.
There you go.
Yeah, it's really fun to use it on the trail and learn. Yep.
Yeah, and the 13ers are just as pretty as the 14ers
Oh my
and
gosh.
less crowded.
Definitely.
All right. Well, thanks so much again. And to everybody else, thanks again for joining. And look out for that second part, which will come in a few weeks. I think we'll give you a couple of weeks at least time to play around with your Garmin devices, and then maybe take a look at Basecamp if you want to. And then we'll come back, and Barbara has a new lecture set up that will tell you everything about Basecamp, basically.
Yes. And I hope to have the Basecamp. I don't know if I can do it within 3 weeks. It'll probably be within 4 weeks. But in the meantime,
That's
do
fine.
homework. And I'm with the Gore Range group, so check the Gore Range group because I see a couple questions about doing 13ers, and I already have a couple in mind. So keep an eye out. It'll be a lot of fun.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody. Okay.